happens in the last days of the dying regime. They will never shut me up. They'll have to kill me first. I have not yet begun to fight.
Merrick Garland, Lisa Monaco, the entire Justice Department, they're not going to shut up Trump. They're not going to shut up Navarro. They're not going to shut up Bannon. And they're certainly not going to shut up MAGA.
We are at war.
People ask, what can we do? Listen, pray for our enemies. I don't have time. Do not write a letter to me at all. It will not be read.
This is a crusade of righteousness. Are you with us? Are you with us?
I am not going to take a second to read your letters. I'm not. Because you know why? I don't want you taking time to write a letter. I want you to get to work.
Are we onward to victory? Will anything stop you?
This is all about victory. This is victory or nothing. There's no substitute for victory here.
Guys, no substitute for victory.
November 5th is Judgment Day. January 20th, 2025 is Accountability Day. Trust me, on the afternoon of the 20th, we're also going to start the pick and shovel work to take apart the administrative state and to take on its rogue element, the Praetorian Guard, the deep state. We're going to run them all out of town.
Let's pause it there. Won't play the whole thing. I will share with you the link immediately. I've checked that we are live across all of the various planes of the interwebs. It looks good. We're on the good mic, sharing this in. You know what's amazing is I've gone through this transformation with a number of people. Alex Jones was the first one, and Mike Cernovich was another one. Steve Bannon is another one. People who were indoctrinated to believe that we don't like, that they're bad people or something. And the biggest revelation was, in as much as I've ever gotten to know someone who I've never met in real life but have spent a number of hours with online, you get to know Alex Jones. You get to know these people who were demonized, I would say pariahs, and you understand why that was done in the first place. And more often than not, it's not because they're bad people whatsoever. It's actually quite the opposite. Like, you don't need to sit there wasting time demonizing genuinely bad people because they do it for themselves. You need to do it with the people who are ideological threats to you. And Steve Bannon, congratulations, MSM. Congratulations, Biden regime. I never really knew who he was. I knew what I thought, the media had said about him. And now I look at him and I see someone who is something of a hero for the time. Didn't choose to be put where he is, in prison for 4 months. Not that long of a time for, anybody who wants to compare him to death row inmates, but 4 months in jail, in prison, for defying a congressional subpoena of an unlawfully formed committee after having been deprived of all of his defenses before a corrupt, I'm fairly certain it was DC, but I might be mistaken, court system. An unlawfully formed January 6th committee issuing unlawful, invalid subpoenas in which he was not allowed to raise that defense, not allowed to raise executive privilege, sent to jail to be a political prisoner for the 4 months leading up to the most important election in the history of America. And I genuinely and sincerely believe that it is that. I'm emotionally invested. I'm personally invested. I didn't start off this way, and I never thought I would be in this position. If it's 4 more years of the Biden-Harris turned Harris-Walz administration, I don't know what's left of America, and I don't know what happens to the rest of the world. And I don't think things look good, and you can follow the polls, and you can follow the betting markets, and you can follow the catastrophic week that is following cackling Kamala wherever she goes. But get out. If early voting is started now in a number of states. Like Bongino says, bank the vote. Get out there, bring 10 people with you. And this is not like a holding your nose and voting. This is get out, be proud. I would say take selfies, but double check if you're allowed taking selfies in a state where it might not be illegal to take selfies or ballot pictures and post them to the internet. A lot of jackasses out there, and they all seem to be Kamala Harris supporters. Get out there, vote proudly, and make it the movement. This is like, I spend the weekend thinking about it. I mean, I'm obsessing about it. I'm dreaming about it. It's probably not healthy. I'm sitting there looking at a Democrat Party that once celebrated Dick Cheney as a war criminal that he is for 2 decades. And now they celebrate Dick Cheney as a white dude for Harris. They're celebrating Dick Cheney alliance, like literally an alliance with the devil. And you look at who is on Team Kamala, and they are sellouts, they are has-beens, they are liars, they are war criminals of the highest order. And you look at Team Trump, which is beyond Team Trump right now. Tim Walz, what was the list I put together? Mark Cuban, Dick Cheney, Liz Cheney, Adam Kinzinger, the scum of the earth. Usher joining the crowd. Good for you, Usher. Usher, who has deep ties with P. Diddy, who on The View, what was it, 2 weeks ago, shied away from endorsing Kamala Harris, said, you vote for who you vote for, and he looked great doing it. You know, he wasn't playing partisan politics. 2 weeks later, I guess they found something on those Diddy tapes, and he is now towing the political party line. Oh, they got George W. too on their side. It's an amazing thing. And then you compare that to Donald Trump, J.D. Vance, Tim Walz accusing J.D. Vance of denigrating his hometown. Congratulations, Tim Walz. You're an idiot and you didn't read the book. And if you did, you don't know how to read. You got those scumbags versus Trump, J.D. Vance, Vivek Ramaswamy, Elon Musk, RFK Jr., James Woods. I forgot a lot on my list that I put together over the weekend. Good people. You know, the good people who left the Hollywood cesspool support righteousness. And the dirty ones who have P. Diddy tapes all up their wazoo are now supporting Kamala Harris. I put together a meme and I want it to echo through the ages. I don't often, like I'm sitting here, my wife comes into my studio, the home studio, and says, what the hell are you laughing about? And I said, this is what I'm laughing about. I've done something glorious, if I may say so myself, and I need it. Look at this, by the way. It's just so glorious. In case you're not up to speed on Kamala's disgusting, disastrous last week to add it to the rest of them, she thought this was a good idea to like scream like a cackling buffoon. And some people are going to say, this is evidence why we don't need hysterical, emotional, crazy women in office. This has nothing to do with sex or gender. You get up there and scream like a banshee, like an idiot, it will take your campaign down, not because you're a hysterical, irrational woman, because you're an absolute unhinged lunatic. Howard Dean was no woman. And when he lost his stuff on that, when he went nuts screaming at people like a raging buffoon, it tanked his campaign. Listen to this, and it's beautiful. It's a glorious meme. It's loud because Kamala is loud.
Should never again have the privilege of standing behind the seal of the President of the United States. Never again. 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 Should never again have the privilege of standing behind the seal.
I mean, it's so crazy, and it literally hurts my ears. Like, not hurts my ears like Justin Trudeau. Justin Trudeau hurts my ears, but not physically. That physically hurts my... Who the hell thought that was a good idea? And it's so contrived, and it's so manufactured, and it's so disingenuous. But that's what she is, Link. Contrived, disingenuous, and above all else, thoroughly unhinged. This comes in the same week where she has the balls, and I'll say this, to accuse Trump of being unhinged. Never. It's insane. And, you know, I think I want to have even more optimism than I already have, because I think after having had a discussion with someone who I would have taken for granted, would have been proud to say that they were voting for that cackling hen of an idiot, Kamala, didn't say that. They didn't say that they were voting. They certainly wouldn't be voting for Big Bad Orange Man. But I got the impression like some people who I would have otherwise thought are the most staunch would have been the most proud, diehard, put a first woman, black woman, Indian woman, DEI woman in the White House, wasn't. And so I'm drawing a lot of inspiration from that. Pure Evil says, I mean, so if you, well, I guess we're going to talk about it when Barnes gets here, but let me see if I can bring this up. Pure Evil. If you didn't hear it, I mean, I was obsessing over it. I put out a vlog yesterday. She would never insult Catholics, and then literally tells someone who said Jesus is Lord to get out of her protest or get out of her rally. Oh, you want to go to the one that's down the street, the smaller one down the street, because after all, it's Trump who's the one who's totally infatuated with sizes of crowds, right? It's all confession through projection. It's all hypocrisy. And I genuinely believe she might be too stupid to be evil, but evil is not necessarily like malice. Evil can be cowardice. And I say that as someone, I know people can accuse me of being a coward, period. But like evil, there's different types of evil. And one of the evil is being a coward and succumbing to temptation. And, if Kamala Harris is too dumb to be bona fide evil, like I don't know if she goes around killing puppies at night, sure as hell wouldn't be surprised with a cackling scream like that. She's evil in that she's playing ball for the deep state, whoever just tells her to say the lines, act like a lunatic, and, do whatever you need to do to get elected. All right, people. Never again, never. Oh, I can't stop hearing it, and it drives me nuts. Now, I think one thing that could have prevented me from hearing that, people, is if I would have gotten the Faraday bag from 5G Free. By the way, 5G Free, one of Rumble's partner products out there. It's amazing stuff, people. These are our sponsor for the night. We got 2 of them. 60% of U.S. adults have had their data hacked or exposed. That means if your data hasn't been hacked yet, you might be the lucky winner of the worst raffle ever. Our phones and laptops are like those shady friends who share your secrets with everyone. They're basically homing beacons for big tech and government tracking. But we all know that anyhow. But trusting them with your data is like trusting a politician. Never again. Might as well believe in unicorns. That's why 5G Free's Faraday laptop and phone holders are here. They aren't just cases. They're like throwing your device into a digital black hole. EMF radiation blocked, GPS and tracking gone. Your data stays yours, and your privacy stays off the grid where it belongs. Let's be real. The same folks who pushed PRISM now want you to trust them with our data. We're not buying it, and neither should you. Head to 5gfree.com. Use promo code VIVA for 15% off. Say goodbye to digital creepers and keep your data locked down better than your ex's password. All right, 5G Free right there, people. And our second sponsor. Here we go. Bring it up, people. This is the one that we know very well, and hopefully you have it but don't need it, as opposed to need it and not having it. Remember Event 201. Just before an election, Bill Gates, the World Economic Forum, and John Hopkins ran a pandemic simulation in October 2019. Months later, COVID hit. It'll blow your mind if you didn't know this, but I think everybody watching already knew that. Here we go again, by the way, because it's October. We're on the verge of a historic election, and the bird flu summit is announced. And what they're going to do there, they're just going to run the full-scale pandemic exercise coming on the 21st. It's going to be in New York City. Their playbook is the same: create chaos, bring back lockdowns, and perform medical tyranny. Wake up. This could be their October surprise. Last time we were caught off guard, but now you don't have to be with the proven device medical emergency kit from the wellness company. Every home should have at least one of these. They're packed with life-saving medications: ivermectin, amoxicillin, Z-Pack, all backed by experts like Dr. Pina McCullough. Picture this: no more frantic looking for a doctor, waiting in emergency rooms. You have it all, everything you need at your home. Protect yourself now by going to twc.health/Viva. Promo code Viva will get you $30 off and free shipping. Don't wait until it's too late. twc.health/Viva. Promo code Viva and get yours today. Never again. All right, so it's it's amazing, by the way. So we might stay on both platforms all night. We'll see how this works out here, because coming into the election night, we're going to be live streaming the election night. I am not teaming up with, but Eric Hunley and Mark Robert are going to be down the street from where I live doing something. So we're going to have a whole night of November 5th dedicated, and I'll be bouncing around, but we're going to have this, and it's going to be amazing. There was a reason why I was bringing that up. Oh yes, November. Geez, I don't want to be accused of the wrong date. The election is the November 5th election. It's November 5th. I keep getting mixed up between November 4 and November 5. By November 6, we're going to know. Yes, in-person voting deadlines, November 5th. November 5th, Tuesday, people. Get out and vote. All right, peeps, we're live across all of the various planes of the interwebs: Rumble, YouTube, and vivabarneslaw.locals.com. Thanks for all your streams. Your perspective is so appreciated. Bella 40, thank you very much for being here. Cheryl Gage in the house. Trump, do you want fries with your free speech? Me, yes, I do. Hold on one second. If you haven't seen that, I had that one on the backdrop. The thing is this. I can understand how people have just been indoctrinated to hate Trump. Like, I can understand how people listen to Trump's voice and hate his voice as much as I hate Justin Trudeau's or Kamala Harris. I can understand it only, mutatis mutandis. But I say, like, it's like someone saying, yeah, I hate rib steak as much. I hate eating rib steak as much as I hate eating poo. I'm sorry to like give a graphic disgust. Or like, I hate eating rib steak as much as I hate eating rotten milk. I can understand how somebody says that, but they're wrong. Okay? I can understand that someone thinks that they hate Donald Trump's voice and they look at this and say, what a contrived photo op. First of all, it is a photo op and it's a glorious one. It's a troll. It's funny. When you listen to this, listen carefully. When he waves out the window and you hear a crowd of people cheering, I think that's what it is. I can understand people think they hate Donald Trump, and to them, I wish I could like metaphorically slap them and splash cold water in their face and say, you idiots. You don't understand that this man is not what you have been brainwashed into thinking that he is. I don't need to be brainwashed into thinking that Kamala Harris is what she is. She tells us this on a daily basis. Oh, but he made fun of the handicapped reporter because you're idiots and you believe propaganda. Oh, but he said suckers and losers because you're idiots because you believe propaganda. Oh, he wouldn't go to the funeral in France with the gravestones of the soldiers. You're idiots and you believe propaganda. Listen to this and tell me that anybody can look at this, a rational person with a functioning brain, and not love this man.
Okay, let's say. You believe this? Look at this guy. He's a MAGA guy all the way.
Okay, so for his first order, yep.
Boy, that's a good-looking group. Hello, everybody.
Listen. You hear that?
This is not a normal situation, is it, huh? How are you? What a good-looking family. How did you produce those good-looking kids? Oh, they look like the wife. They look like the wife. How are you? Nice to see you. That's great. Thank you, man. Thank you very much. Thank you. And there'll be no charge. Trump is paying for it. Is that okay?
Election, he's buying votes because you're brainwashed idiots.
I'm allowed to do that, right?
Yeah.
Let's check and make sure it's everything you said it would be. It better be. It's going to be the best you ever. I made it myself. Make America great. That's it. Right. Thank you, man. Thank you. Thank you. Have a good time. Have a good time. That's great, isn't it?
Okay.
How cute is it?
Car.
Okay, next car.
Yes, they get both bags.
You like them both at the same time?
Yes, that is right.
So I just want to pause this and just make sure everybody understands this. If you think you hate him, you're an idiot. You've been brainwashed by propaganda. I feel bad for you, and I hope that you come out of this. I guess I could say I pray that one day you awaken from this. This man was nearly murdered 3 months ago. Took a bullet, and if you think that that it was a staged photo op, you're an idiot and you've been watching too much propaganda. He was nearly fired upon again 2 months later. Can you imagine, like the courage? I mean, look, heroes are not made; they're thrust into situations where they respond with heroism. To be able to do this and not be paralyzed with fear, it's not something that very many people on this earth could possibly do. Sitting there, smooth as a cucumber, cool as a cucumber, with humor and love.
Hello, how are you? You're a good-looking guy. 45, 47. We love you. Come here. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. I will. I promise. Thank you very much. That's on me. Okay? Have a good time. Thank you very much. I'll see you at the White House.
Make sure that you see him at the White House, people. I mean, it's a thing of beauty. So I had that in that. I was going to start with that, but I figured we'd start with Steve Bannon. And, speaking of heroes who were thrust into the circumstances and responded properly. I halt 86. Got to say, those extra salty fries that Uncle Donnie was serving today probably tasted great. Dipped in, was the only working ice cream machine at McDonald's. Oh, did you know that the only working ice cream machine was in Pennsylvania? There's a rumor that those ice cream machines don't work for a strategic reason. Stefano GGGGG. Are Dominion voting machines being used in swing states? It appears mail-in ballots are much less than 2020. Do you feel comfortable that the level of cheating can be overcome? Let's screen grab that for when Barnes gets in here. We're going to talk about this, obviously. It appears mail-in ballots are much less than 2020. I don't want to make a mistake here, but I'm fairly certain that that is only for certain. Hold on one second. I just got an email from Barnes saying that it's not working here. Let's try this here. That's only for that it's down for Democrats, but I believe it might be up for conservatives, Republicans. Here, Robert, if you're watching, I just sent you the link again. Let's make sure that one works. That should work. So, but the margin of cheat that needs to exist in order for them to be able to cheat and not have it be believable, but be able to succeed doing it. What did Barnes says? 0.5%, maybe 1%. Make it beyond 1%, people. I don't know what otherwise swing states might not be in play now. Or sorry, let me rephrase that. What otherwise not swing states could be in play now. So that's what I meant. So it's like 5 swing states. I would love to see a state that typically goes blue, go red. It needs to be decisive, overwhelming. Get everyone on earth to go out there and vote. Make it a movement of pride to save America. And I swear to you, it's happening. I can feel it, but I don't want to jinx it. And certainly don't want anybody getting cocky and thinking it's in the bag. It's not in the bag. Like they said in that horrible movie, the first one there, American Pie. You don't score until you score. And it's not over until November 6th. Despite what they get out there and make sure that there's going to be no red mirage, that it's going to be a red freaking tsunami. That no one will be able to say, "Oh, look at that! We just found just enough amount of votes in the middle of the night to steal it." It's not going to happen. All right, Barnes is coming in here, and I see a super chat over in CommieTube. Florida Dad, haven't seen him in a while. Viva, been away for a while studying, but I can report I passed the bar. Florida Dad Esquire now. By the way, bless you. The New Testament specifically equates cowards with murderers. It's very much a sin. That is Rev 21:8. I don't know what the REV stands for. Robert, I think I'm becoming religious. Like it's a crazy thing. I keep saying I don't believe in God, and yet I still think we witnessed an act of God. I'm still saying I'm not religious, but my goodness, the Bible has a lot of maybe it has all of them, but it has a lot of the lessons of life that everybody needs to know. And whenever I want to find an insightful, not an expression, a maximum something, I just go Google Bible verses with the word, and it comes up. Sir, how goes the battle?
We're back to that. They won't let me use my camera again. You know what? I used the wrong. I'm gonna hop out and come back.
Yeah, come back. I'll read a few more chats. Wojna534 says, with this great community, $1 to GoFund support Tatiana Datrin. What is $1? Let me see what this is here. I will only endorse this or donate to it once I've been able to verify it. Let me see here. Opening it up. After Michael's loss, what do we got? This is, we recently lost a brilliant mind and a beloved family member, Michael Cleater. Unexpectedly passing has left his wife, Tanya Datrin, with many obligations to handle alone. Tatiana. Okay, I'll have a look at this, but everyone, you can check that out. That is from Wojna at Rumble. And let me see what else. So, by the way, Florida Dad, congratulations. Although they say be careful what you wish for. Now you're going to be an attorney in Florida. I don't know if it's any worse in Florida than it is elsewhere, but welcome to the wide world of law. Stay in it long enough to get the experience you need, but not long enough to destroy and crush your soul. All right, Barnes is back, and I love it. I'm like 6 inches taller than him. Robert, what do you have in back there that says it looks like Pilates, 1 month Pilates in the book?
No, if a pirate, I must be. So not Pilates, but it's one of the biographies on one of the great pirates, a very sort of democratizing institution in ways that has never been really fully appreciated by scholars and the public alike. For example, up to a half of all pirates were freed slaves. There's all these places where they keep trying to stick minority actors where they don't fit. And then yet you watch a pirate show or movie and half of them are missing because it's one of the big stories is self-freed slaves that created their own little pirate armies in the Caribbean. And it's one of the fascinating experiments in sort of democratic empowerment, little d democratic empowerment of its own kind. But did you get my link?
I did.
I texted it to you.
Hold on, let me see. Let me see here. Don't tell me yet, Barnes. Oh, no, I don't think I saw this one. Hold on.
See if you can play it.
Oh, I can play it. Let me do this here. I'll send it to myself. But hold on. While you're saying that, Robert, so Pirates of the Caribbean should not have had Johnny Depp as the main actor. It should have had somebody else.
Oh, no, it was a mixed race, but it should have had, about half the actors if it was historically accurate. It's not trying to be, obviously, but it's that they were ex-slaves, freed slaves. I mean, it was its own form of slave insurrection that has been mostly historically absent. And it was its own kind of sort of populist revolt of its own form in ways that has never been fully understood in the general academy or in the broader public.
Well, I've got this here. This looks like a short. I didn't listen. Okay, so I missed this. I'm going to unmute it. All right, let's see what this is.
They're playing a little Rocky Top here on the hill.
That was for this past Saturday.
Robert, I can't pretend to even know what that is.
That is the University of Tennessee defeating the University of Alabama in the college football game. It is one of the greatest, oldest historic rivalries in all of world sports, at least in my opinion. So this is a great little Tennessee. They combine the flag with Tennessee football imagery, very apropos. And Rocky Top is the anthem song sung by Tennessee football fans. So that whenever there's anything to celebrate, folks will be singing Rocky Top. I still think the best song of any team, of any brand, of any sport, anywhere in the world. But special reason to celebrate. And they finish the celebration when they win with a cigar. That's a tradition going back more than half a century. So to all my Tennessee friends and family, it was a good day. And what they chant is they don't give a darn about the whole state of Alabama, whole state of Alabama, whole state of Alabama, because we're from Tennessee. Whenever you win. So great win by the Tennessee football team.
Robert, what do we have on the menu for tonight while I pull up one thing that I know we're going to look at? What's on the menu?
We have the case of Robbie Roberson in Texas, the issues that are happening with Title VII cases. One is going up to the Supreme Court about how employers are getting away with discriminating against people on religious grounds. I had another case. It's pending before the Third Circuit Court of Appeals, but it's becoming a broader pattern throughout the country where federal courts are converting Title VII cases, especially in the COVID vaccine context, into heresy trials and inquisitions into people's political and religious beliefs as a precondition of them having access to a jury trial. We qualified immunity, two separate cases. One is a petition that I am bringing to the Supreme Court of the United States concerning how they're shifting the burden of proof in qualified immunity cases and extending and expanding too far immunity for rogue government agents, as well as there's a case already before the Supreme Court that the Supreme Court issued a favorable ruling on concerning a Texas citizen journalist and the very problematic use of a particular Texas criminal law. We have the Defense Department memorandum that was by a slight margin the most voted topic at the vivabarneslaw.locals.com board today. That sort of went viral with Ron Paul and some others talking about it. There's been some misunderstanding, I think, about what exactly that is.
Mm-hmm.
There were people who thought it meant that the Biden administration had authorized intelligence officers to go out and murder Americans. The RICO up before the Supreme Court. When is an economic injury somehow not an economic injury, according to the corporate defendants caught doing bad acts? True threats, a disturbing case before the Third Circuit Court of Appeals, trying to undermine First Amendment freedoms by extending and expanding true threats jurisdiction beyond its original intentions. When is a curfew constitutional? When must a federal judge recuse and disqualify themselves, one of the rare instances of the appeals court scolding a lower court for not recusing. When can a court prohibit somebody from suing in another court? They're called anti-suit injunctions. Those cases also reached the appellate courts this past week. RICO, what RICO means is in that broader context, and as well the Penny trial that is about to start in New York City.
I said I'll be covering it, following it, but I don't think I'll be doing the day long, all day coverage. It is being broadcast. It's being streamed.
I have no idea.
I'm fairly certain it is. Let me bring up the one that I know everybody was flipping out for. I still think it's an amazing thing. Like, it's 50-50 of people who are intelligent, who I've known are good faith, reasonable people who are disagreeing over the panic to be placed in this. So the news of the week was that this Department of Defense directive issued a revised directive, revised as of September of this year, which apparently, that's not the right part of it. It was this one, which apparently adds this. It says the Secretary of Defense may approve of any type of requested permissible assistance described in paragraph 3.2, yada, yada, yada. The decision to approve requests for these types of permissible assistance described in paragraph 3.2 to law enforcement agencies and other civil authorities are reserved to the Secretary of Defense. Okay. And then it says it's adding assistance in responding with assets with potential for lethality or any situation in which it is reasonably foreseeable that providing the requested assistance may involve the use of force that is likely to result in lethal force, including death or serious bodily injury. And this was in the broader context of the military responding to domestic upheaval disturbances. So, like, I tried to make sense of it. I don't think I'm going to be able to. What is the context in which this directive is being issued? Who's it being issued to? And what new powers does it give them over powers that they already had?
It doesn't give any new powers, and in fact limits existing powers. So this particular directive derives back from 2007, and it was dealing with the implications of the Patriot Act spying on Americans, and it was meant to restrict the activities that could lead to spying on Americans by various intelligence assets at various federal agencies. It was revised by Barack Obama in 2016 and revised now a third time by President Biden in 2024 in September. What this provision says is that if an intelligence asset from any of the federal government is requested to assist with a local or state investigation or case in any manner, and that federal agent has the authority and the means already of engaging in lethal force, that federal agent, he or she, is not allowed to go to the local or work with the local or state agency unless the Secretary of Defense approves it. It's the Biden administration not wanting to get implicated in an agent doing something in a SWAT team raid or one of these cooperating cases where especially if they come from the intelligence apparatus in some capacity. So I don't know what triggered this particular concern within the Biden administration. Maybe there's some issue. Maybe there's some blowback from some SWAT raids that have happened over the past 6 months, where there probably were intelligence sources that are government or considered intelligence sources. That's a broader capacity than just the CIA and the NSA. And like in the case of the gentleman who was shot and killed, basically.
Facebook posts.
Yeah, exactly. One guy over Facebook post, another guy in another situation with I think in Arkansas. So that may have precipitated this. But first of all, a directive cannot create new law or authority. That doesn't exist. A directive is interpreting existing law. So you can't the president can't, through a declaration, say, hereby I declare a new law. That's the legislative branch of government. And the executive branch can only do it to the degree certain powers have been delegated to them. If people read the entire document, which almost all the people jumping to this conclusion have not read the history of the document and haven't read the whole document. And so they're jumping to the wrong conclusions. And honestly, it's a complete red herring and a distraction. I get, Ron Paul doesn't like the national security apparatus being involved at all in anything concerning Americans. And I share his concerns in that respect. But this was a misunderstanding of this provision. So again, you look at it, it's not giving anybody new authority. It's actually limiting the authority. It's saying if you're an intelligence asset, you cannot work with local or state government on anything if you have lethal force, because your right or authority to use it might be brought in by the local and state authority. That's how that happens. Because it will then blow back on us if it goes AWOL, unless the Secretary of Defense personally authorizes and approves it. It's making sure intelligence assets aren't just working with local and state governments on a regular routine whenever they want to, whatever their motivation was. I get people's skepticism, the Biden administration and so forth, but this is some of the legal interpretation was just really bad that was out there. And it was unfortunate, but the Defense Department memo does not give new authority for the Biden administration to go murder you. This is not the case.
Oh, good enough. I mean, I'm reading that apparently Robert Gouveia disagrees, and I'll go listen.
I haven't heard or seen what he said, but usually he just covers it briefly. To my knowledge, he hasn't done like a deep dive on this.
No, and I actually haven't heard what Gouveia had to say about it either. I'll go listen. But if
a lot of people just come to they just rush to conclusions because they have this deep skepticism, understandable skepticism of the Biden administration. But it reminds me a lot of the WHO treaty, where everybody was running around saying this will magically govern us tomorrow without going through Congress. That the president can just unilaterally declare things that the Constitution has long prohibited him from doing. I mean, it's like, no. I mean, if you have a president that just wants to violate the law, that can always happen.
Well, but all
you
that
can't create new law by a Defense Department directive. And what these directives do is channel in authority. And you really dig into this. This is a limitation on authority, limitation on action. That's probably a good one, frankly, because otherwise these officers and agents are happy to be gung ho and saddle up on SWAT raids that they shouldn't probably be on. If there's someone that is authorized within the federal government to have the authority to use lethal force, but when they use it with these state and local because that's what this whole paragraph is talking about, state and local investigations, that legal authority will come from the state and local authority, that they're kind of deputizing the federal officer. The feds don't want to be implicated in that for whatever reason, maybe good reasons, maybe bad reasons. But it's not an extension or expansion to mass murder you.
I mean, there's a bunch of trolls in the chat, which is always a good sign. Okay, fantastic. So, I mean,
people want to believe dumb stuff.
Well,
there's people running around saying the elections are all going to be stolen. You're wasting your time. And what they're not admitting is their real intention is they're complicit with the bad actors. Because why would somebody go around telling you that the election is guaranteed to be stolen? What's their intent? What action do they want you to take? They want you to not vote, not participate, not care, not be engaged. In other words, they're working for the other side that they claim to be working against. And they make stuff up. I mean, there's people that, for example, I've been a big critic of Dominion machines and machines in general. Ask a lot of these people that claim that Dominion machines will run the entire election. How many counties are Dominion machines even located in America? Hint, about 90% of counties, they're not even located in. So how are they going to manipulate the vote in 90% of the counties where they're not located in? These people don't have answers. They buy red herrings and they run off on wild goose chases. I mean, there's people running around saying that, there's millions of illegals on the voting rolls, and that's been proven. No, it hasn't. That hasn't been proved. There's things to worry about in the election, a whole bunch of them, but these are not the ones to be worried about. And people keep chasing red herrings and black pill doomers. And what they're really doing is they're helping the other side. And I don't think they're in good faith anymore. Some of them are just grifters. Like, these people will accuse me of being a grifter. It's confession through protection. These people are grifters. They're telling you they're grifters. If they're accusing me and Richard Barris of being a grifter, they're telling you that they are the grifter, that they are the liar, that they are the fraudster. And quit buying every doomer thing that comes down the pipeline. Be concerned, be conscientious, be proactive, but don't buy into every doomer black pill that somebody tries to feed you.
No, and when I read it, like the analogy I had, or at least my experience, was in Quebec, people suddenly became aware of a law that said that you could force vaccinate a general population. And everyone's like, look at they just passed this in the dead of the night. Nobody even knew. And I'm like, that law had been on the books for 2 decades. And that's also what should be shocking about it. You know, I was going back and reading. First, it didn't strike me as the government needing any authorization to use lethal force on Americans. They've done it repeatedly. And so when I went to look at that, and the wording seemed to be consistent with prior directives that had existed for a little while, I'm like, I thought it was a bit of a red herring.
And there's beginning provisions that say it's still limited by all other statutory and constitutional restrictions and da 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 da. So I mean, there's reasons to wonder why they're revising these things. And I think that's where the skepticism should have been directed. Why are they revising? What's their goal and objective? But the goal wasn't to have mass execution of Americans with secret authorization overnight.
No, but you have that
law.
You have the revision in conjunction with the likes of Ratskin, Jamie Raskin saying we're going to have civil war conditions. Hypothetically, if you knew that that's what they wanted to do, let's just say you want to connect that.
But this is a restriction.
Yeah,
this
but it's a
makes
restriction.
It harder for people to get approval and authorization to do things. That's what this does. This says now you can't do it on your own local agency. You can't local office. You got to go all the way up to the Secretary of Defense and get his direct approval. So this is this is because they don't like people engaging in things for whatever reason they're uncomfortable with. No, maybe the motivation is people who are doing conscientious work, white hat work with local agencies exposing true corruption. Maybe that's their goal, is to preclude them from helping in those cases. Or maybe it's they just don't like the blowback for people going AWOL. Whatever their motivation, this was a limitation on power, not an extension or expansion of it.
Now, it segues into what, not to get to doom-pilled, and maybe this is a little bit early, just talking about the election now. The question, I have a few questions. Technically speaking, or officially speaking, there are 5 swing states, or are there 7 swing states?
I mean, it depends on how you characterize a swing state. So currently a swing state is considered a state that has switched hands in the Trump era. So in 2016 or 2020, going back, so ones that he won in 2016 and then lost in 2020. Those are your typical identified swing states. But there are other states that can become swing states that might just be close. In other words, states that swing from one party to the other. And that's the only definition. And which ones count depend on how you assess the probability of those states being competitive. So in some people's, there's a consensus, relatively speaking, that Georgia, Pennsylvania, Arizona, Nevada, Michigan, and Wisconsin are swing states. There's some people that would say Florida and North Carolina are swing states, that Trump could lose those. There are those on the more conservative side that say New Mexico, Minnesota, Maine, and New Hampshire are swing states because in either one of the last 2 elections they've been close and might again be close. So the only thing that excludes a swing state is a state that is consistently voted by double digits or more for one party or the other. Mm-hmm. So, Alabama, Mississippi, Idaho, Wyoming, California, New York, New Jersey, these are not realistically considered swing states in the Trump era. So that's all it really means.
Okay. And now, going into the election, I'm noticing only on Predicted that the predicted electoral college difference is now like the most expected one is 65 or 64 to 105, or give or take. There's got to be some mathematical calculation as to which is the most likely one based on the number of electoral college, depending on the state. Which states are, in theory, up for grabs?
I think the broadest category would be those 10 states. So Florida, most people don't consider Florida competitive, but there's some on the Democratic side that do. Mm-hmm. Georgia, North Carolina, Pennsylvania, Wisconsin, Michigan, Nevada, Arizona. And on the conservative side, they would add to that Maine, New Hampshire. A few would even throw in New Mexico and Minnesota. So up to 12 states that could change hands from the last election. And
now I'm just looking at Polymarket for the popular vote. It's got Kamala Harris getting the popular vote at 66%. I mean, that is a not a sure bet, but you think there's no reasonable chance that Trump can get a popular vote victory in this election?
No, I've already forecast that he will actually win the popular vote. I'll have an updated forecast on Tuesday. Usually we do What Are the Odds with Richard Barris, People's Pundit Daily. You can find him on YouTube, Rumble, and Locals. Also his public polling project, if you want to get honest, accurate polling from a sincere, authentic, accurate pollster, you can support the public polling project, and you're the only client or customer that you can support the public polling project at People's Pundit Daily. And you can find them on Locals, Rumble, YouTube. But it'll probably be Tuesday at 2 p.m. Eastern. We'll do the latest breakdown there, because tomorrow I got to go to court in L.A. Then Wednesday, got to go to court in Seattle. I might have to go to court in Philly on Friday. So, it might be a busy week, as they say. But I think, but I put out detailed predictions. Also, if people want all the details of what I'm recommending, you can go to sportspicks.locals.com, where we post all the election picks. I got all those posted for every single state, the margin of victory, Senate races, House races, the Electoral College vote, the popular vote margin, because you can vote now because of Cauchy, because of what we talked about a couple of weeks ago legally, was that the reason the Biden administration, my belief, that they were suppressing the availability of political betting markets and prediction markets in the United States was because they provide a counter to the public narrative that tries to script a story, and usually in the favor of the Democratic candidate in the modern era. And the prediction markets can be a counterpoint to that, because people get to put their money where their mouth is and you get to see what people really think in that capacity. And as long as the betting markets were mostly global and inaccessible to the ordinary American on an easy basis, then the net effect was you weren't getting as much of a sampling of American opinion through the prediction markets that have, as a whole, been more accurate than most other methods and mechanisms of prediction of whatever kind of event is being thought about or considered or contemplated. But Cauchy won their legal suit, and so Cauchy and now Interactive Brokers, two different U.S.-based websites, they're one of the most popular apps in the country right now is Cauchy, and people are pouring money into it, so much so that the Wall Street Journal and some social media folks started doing smear and hit pieces, trying to dox a guy. One of them they claimed was he was a Montreal Canadian, so that somehow that made him really bad, that he was a Montreal Frenchman. That somehow he was miraculously manipulating all the betting markets of the entire world. What happened as soon as Americans got the chance to bet, put money where their mouth is, at places like Cauchy, KALSHI.com, or places like or Interactive Brokers, along with Polymarket, along with Predictit, along with Bet Online, along with Bet US, along with Betfair, along with all the British bookies. All of a sudden, global money started tracking what U.S. money was doing. And U.S. money was screaming, everybody's undervaluing Trump. That people in their ordinary, everyday communities see the Trump that shows up and serves them fries at the local McDonald's, not the Trump that's trying to be caricatured by the mainstream press. And they see a Kamala Harris that is just a dumbed-down version of Hillary Clinton, a dumbed-down, more diverse version of Hillary Clinton. And so they just, as soon as they could, most of the money were small bets. The ordinary, people are not making huge bets. Now, some of them are subscribers to sportspicks.locals.com, but a lot of them have been active in the markets now for over a year, have already cashed in. You could have got Trump 18 months ago at 10% to win the presidency. Well, that was one of the bets I put out, and made a lot of money. And I said short DeSantis, some other things. A lot of bets already cashed. Not all of them, but more than often than not. And so once they got access to that, all of a sudden the whole world was like, hold on a second. All the bookies started paying attention to it. A lot of the global money started paying attention to it. And they're saying the people who really care and who have a reason to care about making sure they don't lose their money are saying at a record rate, Trump is going to win this thing. Trump's going to win a lot of the swing states. Trump might even win the popular vote. The Senate was going to go Republican. The House, which everybody in the media was saying was going to stay Democratic, would actually go Republican. And that's what started moving the money. And it so frightened and terrified them that they tried to go into Polymarket and manipulate it themselves and failed. And so then they started spinning this false tale that, right wingers are manipulating the betting markets to try to create this false impression that Trump should have a lead. I mean, when every objective information source out there, and historic and traditional predictive source out there, and even the media's own polling was forecasting a Trump victory. The Harris's own internal polling was forecasting a Trump victory. When you have Democratic Senate candidates in these swing states cutting ads talking about how much they really are aligned with Trump, you don't have to be a genius to know what's happening in those states. But that's why, the Biden administration weaponizing the legal system to suppress accurate information. It was like another form of censorship, just by disguise, by not allowing ordinary Americans to put money where their mouth is about what they think is going to happen in the election. And and thanks to Kalshi, the government lost. They went begging the higher courts to please intervene and stop this from going on for the next 2 weeks. They're not getting the higher courts to take the bait as yet. And you see now why in the real world. It's another example of lawfare as a tool of suppression of dissent was prohibiting the availability of prediction and betting markets for the U.S. election.
And actually, just before we get into the natural segue, which is going to be Arizona, hypothetically, Trump gets the popular vote, but what would the numbers look like? Based on prior years, you had allegedly 81 million for Biden in 2020 to Trump's 73. What do the numbers look like?
Trump got 75.
75. So what do they look like in 2024, or are they expected to look like?
Well, it depends on turnout. So that you could have Trump win the popular vote, but he may not get more than 75 million votes if there's just a lot fewer votes this time cast. And there's some reason to believe that may happen. So there's some experts estimating only 145 million votes.
Why would any expert be projecting that Trump votes would be less than 2020? If anything, I would imagine people would be more stoked this year.
They're estimating fewer people are going to vote, period. So that that will impact both sides. So that they're just estimating that the degree of turnout that happened in 2020, which was extraordinary, is not going to repeat itself. And that you're going to see a drop-off, a decline in overall turnout. And some of that may be the ease with which people could vote by mail-in voting. Typically in elections, the enthusiasm has mattered in presidential elections because a lot of people who say they're going to vote just don't vote unless they're really intently committed to it. The issue was whether mail-in voting made enthusiasm irrelevant because it was so easy. Everybody just went and did it. Now that it's not so easy, does everybody go and line up for 2 hours and vote? Does everybody remember to do it? Maybe they think, "Oh, I'll do it tomorrow when it's a little bit better." They never get around to it.
I'm going with X sub guy here. I don't think that's what's going to happen this year. I think turnout is going to be huge. I think so as well, but I think a lot of people.
It's definitely going to be down overall. At least so far. All the early voting data, mail-in voting data, public opinion polling survey data suggests that we're not going to hit the almost 160 million people that voted in 2020. And our voting age population, our voting eligible population is larger. So just the growth of the population, you would think we would go over $1.60. It's looking more. I thought we were going to hit, somewhere around 155, 156. I thought it'd be down, but not down a whole lot. It may be at 150 or below.
Well,
now the question is, you're right. Who did it disproportionately hit? Are those now? Here's like somewhere the votes go. Remember, there's people who've died in the last 4 years, right? So there's some Trump voters that literally are no longer around. And that's probably several million. So in order to replace that, you need new voters who come into the election to replace that. So just life, just people passing away, takes a portion of the electorate out each year. And then the replacement voters determine, and how many of those turn out. Maybe a bunch of the replacement voters don't vote, don't really care. But maybe it disproportionately hurts Harris. That's where a lot of people are trying to decipher these early voting data,
Mhm.
mail-in voting data in states that have it, states that have a better history of that being predictive. Not all states do. So it's a little bit of a tricky art. But from the preliminary data, it does look like fewer Americans will vote in this presidential election as a percentage of the voting eligible electorate than did in 2020.
If I had to guess, though, I would bet that there'd be more than 75 million Trump voters this time around, because back when they hit those numbers in 2020, I don't think Republicans were, the ones voting in by mail early because of it being easy. So I think there'll be more than 75 million Trump votes this year, if I had to bet. I'm looking to see if there's a market for that, but I don't think there is.
They don't have a specific number. They just have, I don't even think they have percentages. They just have whether he'll win the popular vote or not.
Get out and vote, people. All right. Now, speaking of getting out and vote, and make sure you take 10 people with you. Arizona, I'm looking, I want to know what on earth has to happen for Kari Lake to beat Ruben Gallego in Arizona. And I just started looking into it, Robert, this fact check about his ties to cartel. And I was less inclined to believe it before I read the fact check than I am now. The fact check says that it's pants on fire what Kari Lake said, that, he's got links to the cartel. His father was convicted of possession of cocaine and marijuana with intent to distribute. His uncle was murdered in Mexico. His dad was from Mexico. His wife is from, his mother is from Colombia. And they fact check Kari Lake as being pants on fire, despite Gallego saying, yeah, my dad was arrested, possession with intent to traffic. Uncle was killed in Mexico. I didn't want to know any more details on that. I never asked. What is known about the allegations of Gallego's history, and what has to happen in Arizona for Kari Lake to win? She's at like 17% or 20% on Kalshi Poly Market, and predicted all of these, despite everyone saying it's 43 to 47%. And I appreciate that doesn't mean it should be more to 50-50 on the markets, but what does she have to do? And is she not wildly undervalued as far as betting goes?
So I mean, that was what we predicted last week did come true this week. It's another example of using the legal system to try to suppress and censor information. The Gallego campaign, and Gallego himself personally, was trying to keep his divorce record secret, had kept him secret through most of the campaign. The Arizona Court of Appeals said they should have never been kept secret in the first place. And the Arizona Supreme Court rejected his emergency appeal. So those records are now public.
But it didn't show it wasn't as damning or damning at all. There was an allegation of in their divorce agreement papers that the parties agreed to no substantial history of domestic violence, which some lawyers suggest is an indication of domestic violence, but they agree to that so that one person doesn't get prejudiced in the courts. I don't know if you have any particular take on that.
Well, I think the reason why he tried to keep it secret was primarily the timing of his divorce. That that basically he decided to abandon his wife when she was 9 months pregnant, and take up with the person he was probably already having an affair with, who apparently worked in his office.
Mm-hmm.
So it's just sleazy Democratic kind of behavior. Now there's no question of his familial ties to drug cartels, especially in Mexico, and the only issue there then is, do you extend that to Colombian drug cartels? You don't have to watch the Netflix show Narcos to know that the two are indistinguishable and have been now for about 40 years. That they work their hand in hand. They don't grow the cocaine down there in Sonora.
Mm-hmm.
So who are they getting it from? The media fact checking, trying to disprove that. Mostly the media's run very effective interference on his behalf. And he's using his name, Gallego, to get a lot of working class Hispanic, Mexican American votes there in Arizona. And that's the reason, in part, he is being sort of inflated a bit in the public opinion surveys, in my opinion. But he has benefited from a lack of investigative review and prior court complicity in covering up the true nature of who and what he is. Not just ideologically, but in his family ancestry, but also his behavior as a congressman. And there, as a congressman, he decides to dump his wife on. I mean, put it this way: if that was a Republican, if that was Lake who did that, it would have been top news for 3 months. And so it just shows you the degree of disparity in the media coverage. And in this case, the courts were at least for a while, thankfully not all the way through, complicit in the cover-up.
I had another question there, however. It was, the issue about the settlement documents between the spouses saying no meaningful or no substantial history of domestic violence. Is that par for the course for any spousal agreement, or when you see that, do flags go up?
I've never seen it in a case that didn't involve domestic violence.
Okay.
Put that way.
And people are doom pilling and saying Katie Hobbs is in charge of the Arizona election again, so Kerry Lake is done for.
That's only partially true. So so Katie Hobbs has control at a state level, but the state really controls very little of the functional election apparatus in Arizona. That is heavily controlled at the county level, and often has great control at the precinct level. And so we'll see what happens in terms of voter registration, voter turnout. But so far, if there was a case of questionable ballots coming in, or Republicans all waiting until election day in Arizona to vote, which helped make a disparate impact on the election day vote in 2022 when machines broke down and the like, we should be seeing it in the early voting and mail-in data that's already available in Arizona, as well as the registration data. And instead, all the registration data has trended Republican. It's the evidentiary way you could prove your case from a court perspective. And when you look at it, if there's some secret plan to steal it, it's got to be being kept secret from the people who need to implement the plan. So in fact, it's quite evident that the Democrats believe the 2020 election was really on the up and up. They don't believe they stole anything. They don't believe mail-in voting had really anything to do with the higher turnout. They think, well, it was a pandemic, so it was just making sure those people could vote without risking their lives. That's it. And so, even though mail-in voting has fallen off a cliff in states where it was new and novel in 2020, they're saying, oh, that's no big deal. Those people are just going to vote early. Well, what happens when they don't turn up to vote early? Oh, don't worry, they're going to vote on election day. And what about the fact that the voter registration rolls are showing these massive shifts towards Republicans that they just ignore? And they say, well, it's because all the Democrats decide to register unaffiliated this year. I mean, it's because they've convinced themselves that 2020 was on the up and up, that there were no bogus mail-in ballots, that none of those were, or alternatively, even if you didn't think they were bogus, that those were people who only voted because they were sent and mailed a ballot in states that don't historically do that for everybody in the state. And even here in Nevada, where everybody still gets a ballot, two things have happened. The voters' rolls got purged. So for the first time in a decade that I've lived here, because they've been sending out mail-in ballots all along, I only received a ballot for my name. I'd always received multiple ballots and multiple people's names at my address, even though they hadn't lived there in 20 years. They finally actually did purge the voter rolls here. And consequently, I only got one legit ballot. And the ballots being returned, the ballots being requested, the early vote that took place, massive decline and dropout in Democratic voter participation. So, these people, there's these people that actually believe ridiculous things that basically undermine those of us who care about election integrity, because they say things that are provably false. And I saw somebody saying, well, Dominion Smartmatic, and I was being sent these posts. I was like, Dominion doesn't own Smartmatic. That whole thing changed years ago. Quit saying it. I mean, you're so lazy, you're going to repeat a dumb lie that got a whole bunch of people in unnecessary difficulty. Mm-hmm. I mean, again, I hate machines. I think we should have paper ballots. I think they should be counted manually. I'm opposed to them. I've always been opposed to them. That doesn't mean that there's this easy, you can just manufacture however many ballots you want. You can just print them up. Some people say, oh, yeah, they already printed them up. They're bringing back the China thing. All these things are designed to get you to not vote. All these things are designed to help the other side that they claim to be working against. Ask yourself, what action do they want you to take based on the information they're giving you? And that should tell you what their real intentions are, their real motivations are. It ain't good. It ain't on your side. And so like some of the election law questions people had asked about is, people raising questions about machine flipping votes. That's why there's a paper receipt proof of that in multiple jurisdictions. And you can catch it. If that's happening with any machine, you say, hold on a second, this doesn't accurately reflect my vote. You tell them and they fix it. So that's the point of getting paper receipts. By the way, the people who've argued for paper receipts forever, to their credit, has been Democrats. Republicans originally didn't want paper receipts. So just a little reminder of how this all evolved. So illegals aren't on the rolls. The machines can't easily fix elections by themselves. You need votes to steal to pack the ballot box. You can't just say, okay, I got 2,000 ballots, I'm just going to stick them in here, when there's not 2,000 people on the voter rolls having voted, when they're not even registered to vote now. So I mean, there are things to pay attention to. The highlighted concerns, in my opinion, are still the same, which is, are we going to do meaningful signature match checks on the elections? Now, interesting, so far, in Alabama, that case that went forward that we talked about last week, the federal district court, it did enjoin the state of Alabama from going forward because of how it unfolded. In other words, so Alabama makes this big deal saying we found a bunch of people who aren't qualified to vote on the rolls. It turned out 90% of them were in fact qualified to vote. This is why you got people just running down every rabbit hole over and over again of doomer black pill theories, end up undermining and sabotaging legitimate questions about election integrity by pushing the wrong story and the wrong narrative and chasing various red herrings around. I was curious to see what the evidentiary record was, and then it turned out the evidentiary record didn't support Alabama's position very well. It's like, okay, that mistake shouldn't have happened in the first instance. They shouldn't have made such a huge deal out of it. Look at how we're defending the election. We found these 50,000 bogus voters. If it turns out 45 of the 50 belong on the voter rolls and you were wrong. That's where it's important to focus. But where there is still legitimate issues, still ongoing litigation, most of it has been wrapped up. But one case that will likely reach the Supreme Court is several of Robert Kennedy's cases. One of them is out of Michigan that was filed in the Sixth Circuit Court of Appeals, where several federal judges dissented. Of course, the federal judges said they have new excuses, by the way. The new excuse, because the old one was, if you sued in spring, the case wasn't ripe. If you sued in summer, the case was already moot. If you sued in fall, by golly, that's latches. You should be smacked around for even bringing the suit, sanctioned for it. The new, and in general, you never have standing when you need it. Here in Nevada, for example, there are still a few people left on the rolls that don't belong there, according to a very credible claim, a credible lawsuit. The district court judge said, "No, you don't have any standing to enforce it." It's like, well, then who does have standing, right? It's a good point. Standing is still one of the major hurdles to constitutional enforcement in this country, as a bogus doctrine invented by lazy judges wanting to play Pontius Pilate rather than deal with their duties to enforce the Constitution, and even in controversial cases. So there are case examples like that. But Robert Kennedy is pursuing is he's saying, look, I have a First Amendment right, and the federal to not be. This is a great theory that his lawyers came up with, which is forcing me on the ballot when I am now withdrawing from the ballot in that state is compelling me to engage in speech. And that's a violation of my First Amendment rights, because you're putting me on the ballot is me speaking, is me saying, I am Robert Kennedy, please vote for me. I have an affiliation with this party. I am seeking the nomination. I'm seeking the elector's nomination for the presidency. He goes, I'm not. So you're compelling speech. Well, how do the district federal courts get out of it? How do they weasel their way out of it? They weaseled their way out of it by saying, res judicata. Res judicata is there are two excuses.
We've already decided it.
Yeah, the state court decided it. I was like, no, the state court didn't really. And that can't be res judicata. I mean, so if the state court confirms and affirms the violation of your constitutional rights, now the federal courts can't do anything about it, when the entire purpose of federal civil rights laws was to enforce it against corrupt state judges? Makes no sense. The other excuse they had was that the the way the case was brought was that it's too close to the election. So it's like this is their late. It's either too early, hey, you don't know what's going to happen yet, or now it's too late. So it's a version of the rightness latches excuse. But they're taking the Supreme Court saying, don't get involved in an election 60 days before the election, judges, unless it's really compelling, as now their latest pretext to avoid any case where the state is playing games with the ballot. But several dissenting judges laid out the intellectual argument that obviously Kennedy's going to take up the Supreme Court. That I think they may take post-election because of who they are, but I think may affirm that the candidate controls whether his name is on the ballot next to a party, not the party. When one of the questions the smart federal judge raised, he was like, okay, well, can states put people's names next to parties they disagree with? So can you actually get a Democratic Party elector by putting Donald Trump's name next to the Democratic Party? Could states decide we're going to stick Joe Biden's name back on the ballot? He's like, did you realize what kind of gamesmanship can come here? The Democratic judges don't care because they just want Robert Kennedy on the ballot because they think it helps them. They're wrong, by the way. They're going to discover that on election day. It keeps coming up in the polling survey. The only people still voting for Kennedy when Kennedy's screaming at everybody, vote Trump, are people who can't stomach Trump, would never vote Trump, but dislike Harris enough, they'll be like, screw it, I'll vote Kennedy. That's what's going to happen. Harris's people can get screwed by this idiotic strategy. But I think that's going to be an interesting case going forward, just like his case out of New York. And one of the judges complained that he was pursuing both cases. That's his constitutional right. Doesn't want to be on the ballot in Michigan, does want to be in New York because he wants to establish the constitutional right against what they did in New York, which was exclude him from the ballot on constitutionally questionable grounds. So, yeah, we'll see how it goes. I mean, we will get interesting constitutional law at the end of this whole thing on elections. But I don't think we're going to face, like there's some people saying the Democrats won't certify now. There's two major hurdles with that. One, Democrats changed the law. Kamala Harris no longer has any legal authority to challenge anything in the 2024 election. Democrats demanded to make it clear, but they pretended that Pence never had that authority. It's like, well, then why did you have to pass a law to say the vice president doesn't have this authority if he never had it? Put that aside. People forget they passed that law. Harris no longer has any legal role whatsoever beyond ministerial in the certification of the election. So she can't block him anymore. Harris championed this law. The second problem they have is a political one. You can't go around for 4 years, including prosecuting and trying to imprison a bunch of people, saying that challenging an election is a federal crime, and then turn around and challenge an election. I get it's hypocrisy from the past. What people like Ratskin is trying to do is he's trying to get Democrats down ballot to please turn out and volunteer and vote and donate, even when they think Trump's going to win, by saying, don't worry, we'll secretly stop him. So keep giving us money to the House, keep volunteering, keep going to the phone bank, keep knocking on doors, and especially keep sending us the check because we have a secret way to stop them. That's all that is. They already in DC, they already know that's never going to happen. So people pushing that nonsense out are quite frankly, again, trying to discourage and deter you from say, hey, look, nothing you can do will matter in this election. Go home, stay home, don't vote, don't participate because it's all rigged. It's all fixed, run by the machine. It's all corrupt. The China and Iran are all going to work together. Hogwash. Trump is on the cusp of an extraordinary election that can have extraordinary legal consequences for the restoration of the constitutional republic from some of our perspectives. And anybody who abandons that because they buy into this nonsense should smack themselves in the face, wake up, and get back in the game. You don't win a game by quitting the game.
Let me do one thing before we end on YouTube here. Locals, get on over to Rumble or Locals, whatever your preference is. And before we go over, I want to read a couple of the Crumble rants, which I now see over here. We got Steve Bannon. Oh, tell me I didn't just.
I forgot to mention we are going to cover Steve Bannon tonight too.
Yeah, for sure. I just flipping darn it. I think I just lost all of the. Hold on, give me 1 second. Let me bring this back. There's no way I just did that. I wanted to read. I saw Bill Tong is in the house live streaming. Come on over here. All right, let me see if I can. pause it. Are they going to repopulate? They repopulated. Oh, thank goodness. Okay, because we got all of the crumble rants up here. Please see Dr. Frank's statistics. Dems are using names of people who are not valid voters in Baca County. They had more people registered than live in the county. That is from Lucy the dog. Epic Guess says Bannon's sweep 2020 plan is DC plan 2024. That is why he is in jail. We got what's the predicted Trump bump for the McDonald's since Uncle Donnie did his last thing. X is going, what did I say here? X is going to bit nuts. Also, you all know you want to try the chicken Big Mac. I don't like eating McDonald's, but Epic Guess at Epic Guess. King of Biltong in the house. Biltong is one of the most protein-dense foods in the world, packed with B12, zinc, iron, creatine, and more. Need a healthy, high-protein snack? Get yours. BiltongUSA.com. Viva 10 for 10% off. I eat it. It's delicious. And shout out from Chattanooga. Love you guys. Says Tinker Ty Powers. Matt G. Hammond. Does Barnes think the Amish are a permanent voting bloc in Pennsylvania that has been radicalized by Democrats attacking their livelihood? Will they vote in state office elections as well going forward? Robert, what do you think?
There will be a substantial increase in their voter participation based on the lawfare against them. But the parts of the community are still asleep at the wheel. Some are awake, some are not. They're more awake than they've ever been. They're not as awake as they need to get to.
We got, if a law is unjust, a man is not only right to disobey, he is obliged to do so. That is from Cam. Lucy the dog. Dominion machines are used in 62 of 64 counties in Colorado. I don't know if that's true. Do you know if that's true, Robert?
Say that again.
That Dominion machines are used in 62 of 64 counties.
In certain states they are. In certain states, Dominion is very present. It's just there's a bunch of states where they're not present at all.
Well, and also Colorado is going Democrat, Republican, but regardless. I mean, it was up like they won.
Colorado's a mostly mail-in state these days.
Chained a lock and gate to my local cemetery, and the Democratic Party accused me of election interference. Bada bing, bada boom. And then the Lord is on his throne. Let's pray that Trump wins. That is Lucy the dog. Barnes, did Tina Peters get convicted of taking forensic images of ballot papers or using an ID to watch the deletion of paper ballots? No, the fake paper ballots are only there in case of an audit. I'm not sure what there's
the problem with this sort of hypothesis of stealing an election is that basically you'd have to have mass complicity of a whole bunch of election officials, including in a bunch of Republican counties. So that's the big problem with that hypothesis. And that is that a bunch of ballots are fake, and they're brought in, and they're said that this is what the person voted, and you basically completely circumvented the entire chain of custody. And it's like, how do you, someone tell me how that's done at a mass level across the country? Two problems. One is how it's done in the first place. That doesn't have a bunch of, middle-aged Republican conservative small town election people all agreeing to conspire in this way. And then secondly, why wouldn't it be flagged by states where that doesn't happen? Right? In other words, you should see a disparity, right? You should see the way you prove election fraud is you see like-minded communities voting in very different directions, in which you can explain empirically by some fraudulent mechanism or method. So in order to accomplish that, there's various ways you can, but you at least at the first place have to have such a disparity. The problem was they printed all this stuff about, different things with little graphs and whatnot. And a lot of that stuff was just flat wrong. That's why Mike Lindell had to pay the $5 million. The person came forward with data that actually disproved one of his key hypotheses. And I like Mike, but I was saying to him and other people, you're chasing rabbit holes and you're ignoring the glaring evidence right in front of you. Did constitutionally qualified people vote? Just check the voter rolls, compare it to whether or not they'll use available databases to see whether they were qualified to vote under the rules set by the legislature of each state. Did people vote in a constitutionally qualified method? Look at what the mechanisms are to enforce it and cross-check it with that. I like 2,000 mules. I support 2,000 mules is my thesis. My thesis is they got votes from people in some cases who didn't even know they voted.
Yeah, like Jimmy Carter, or like that old lady who's like, "Here, Grandma, you're voting. Here, let me keep the pen in your hand because otherwise it's illegal." And then mark the ballot. You just voted for the first Black, Indian woman, whatever.
It came from nursing homes, post office boxes, in apartment complexes.
That's what people like. It's driving me
Places
nuts.
where
Like,
there were a bunch of ballots. You could take those ballots in a centralized location. You knew who was and wasn't voting, and you voted for them on their behalf. And then you distributed them through a mechanism like 2,000 Mules and dropped them off at drop boxes so nobody saw it. You're not going through all of that instead we've printed the ballots from China and they came over and they're sitting here in a box and we'll just run them through the scanner when
and
it's
that's
convenient.
why some of the theories are mutually exclusive. Like people saying, yeah, well, they
Yes,
boarded up the windows. Well, you don't have to do that if they're flipping the votes. And also like
They already have fake ballots.
All right, well, we've gone for too long here now. We're ending on CommieTube, and it ends on Twitter as well, but it is what it is. Sorry, I keep spitting tonight. Rumble and Locals, we're updating. So YouTube, come on over, either to vivabarneslaw.locals. Hold on. Before we do this, I have to show everybody what my dog looks like right now. Pudge. Hey, what's up? She's ashamed. Okay, we've got Halloween costumes already. Check this out. I was wondering when my kid came in here with a devious grin on his face. Let's see this here. This is what our dog looks like. She's got a Yoda sweater on, which actually looks much funnier on Winston than on Pudge. Yeah, get on it. We're carrying this over on the free speech platform, Rumble and Locals, and I'll put up the entire stream on Viva Clips tomorrow. Update.